Welcome to today's Explainer. We are diving into a genuinely fascinating text by author Xu Feng titled Expanding the Space of Life. Right out of the gate, we're presented with a pretty provocative premise. Continuous movement and the expansion of our boundaries aren't just, good ideas. They are fundamentally essential for our survival and our growth. Today, we're unpacking this entire framework. It's a really unique blend of practical life advice mixed with a very specific spiritual cosmology, all centered around this one core idea, that we have to constantly expand where and how we live.
He actually grounds this whole philosophy in a super powerful proverb: a tree that moves dies, while a person who moves thrives. Xu Feng leans heavily on the laws of nature to illustrate why human stagnation is downright deadly. Think about it. Migratory birds, they literally have to move to survive. A tree is rooted to the ground, and if you uproot it, well, it dies. But humans, we are the exact opposite. According to the author, a person who just stays rooted in one spot, never expanding their physical or mental horizons, simply begins to wither. Human thriving absolutely demands movement.
Part 1. The danger of stagnation. Trapped at the bottom of a well.
Okay, let's dive into this. To really help us understand the danger here, the author compares someone trapped in a closed-off life to a person sitting at the bottom of a well, completely unaware of the vast sky up above them. Stagnation is painted as rigid thinking. It's like a lifeless tree, or even more drastically, it's compared to tadpoles wriggling in a tiny puddle that could dry up at any second. It is a striking, visceral image of vulnerability and decay. On the flip side, expansion is aligned with flowing water that constantly stays fresh, migrating birds crossing the globe, and the boundless universe itself. The message is incredibly clear. Isolation is a drying puddle, while movement is vitality.
Because sticking stubbornly to a closed-off life space, it has some pretty severe consequences. It's not just about, say, missing out on a nice vacation. The text argues it causes real societal and psychological damage. A closed society leads straight to ignorance, backwardness, and even intense internal infighting. Even in our personal relationships, cramming siblings or partners into a tight space for too long without expanding their world, that just breeds resentment. Shutting off your heart restricts your perspective, prompts erratic behavior, and ultimately leads to an incredibly arid, depleted existence. It's a stark warning against clinging to your comfort zone.
Part 2. Escaping the Valley, moving from rural to global.
So, looking at everyday human behavior through this philosophical lens, moving around isn't just logistics, it's survival. The text points to rural youth moving to massive cities just to break free from the constraints of the land. It neutrally observes people emigrating from mainland China to places like North America or Europe as a practical way to seek out new environments, what the author metaphorically calls leaping through the Dragon Gate. Even the act of investing in foreign property is highlighted here, not just as a savvy financial move, but as laying the essential groundwork for a backup plan, ensuring you literally have the ability to swiftly pack your bags and leave if famine or disaster ever strikes.
Now, to actually make these moves, the author notes that we rely heavily on social structures. Observing that mainland China heavily emphasizes deep interpersonal relationships, while places like Taiwan focus more on building broad networks, the source argues that these earthly connections are absolutely vital. Whether it's through close, deep relationships or wide-reaching networking, these are the practical, real-world steps to changing your destiny and finding a way out of the restrictive valley. You have to listen to those who have already left, build connections with them, and be completely ready to seize the opportunity.
Which leads right into a very direct rhetorical question posed by Xu Feng to the reader. If others can expand their living space and leave their constraints behind, why can't we? The secret, the text suggests, is simply preparedness. Those who successfully expand their space take the time to understand the outside world and are always, literally at a moment's notice, prepared to move.
Part 3. The Life Chanyuan Philosophy. Ascending to Higher Realms.
All right, this brings us to Life Chanyuan, which is the specific spiritual framework presented by the author. Here, the whole definition of life space shifts. It isn't just about moving from a farm to a big city or from one country to another. It expands the concept far beyond the human world, pushing the ultimate destination for our movement into these massive, eternal celestial realms.
The text outlines these specific spiritual realms to really contrast them with our everyday reality. According to this framework, the common human world is incredibly limited. It lasts only a few short decades. It is exactly that drying puddle of tadpoles we talked about earlier. But for the followers of this philosophy, who the text calls celestials, the life space expands drastically. It encompasses the 1,000-year world, the 10,000-year world, and reaches all the way to the Celestial Islands continent of the Elysium world. It's an expansion from the temporary straight into the eternal. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact step-by-step progression the Source dictates for achieving this spiritual ascension. It bridges the practical right with the theological. First, you have to escape physical traps and build those earthly networks to survive. But to ascend higher, Step 3 requires you to eventually let go of those very same earthly ties. Step 4 is cultivating a pure heart. The text states that only when your heart is completely pure will celestial beings descend and connect with you, which is what actually unlocks those higher, expanded life spaces. The author uses these really grounded architectural metaphors, or perhaps literal promises, depending on how you read the philosophy, to describe this transformation. The text compares a past life of living in cramped, 60-square-meter apartments or hiding out in fearful, secure little caves with the expanded life of residing in luxurious 1,000-square-meter villas. The author even points out the deep irony of people who abandon this path out of fear, asking if staying curled up in a cramped, dark cave is really safe at all, considering everyone ends up in the ground eventually anyway.
Part 4. Consciousness Shapes the Future. The Final Expansion.
This all builds to the absolute core thesis statement of the entire text. Listen to this. The size of your heart determines the vastness of the universe. The depth of your thinking expands the breadth of your life space. Shui Feng argues that you literally cannot physically or spiritually move to a larger space if your internal space is small. True expansion fundamentally has to start from within.
So the crucial point is this pipeline, this direct flow of reality that the text maps out. Step 1, it starts with your thoughts. Step 2, where your thoughts go, your consciousness follows right behind. And step 3, where your consciousness reaches, that is precisely where your life will exist in the future. It's essentially a mechanism of reality creation. If your thoughts are permanently trapped in a tiny mountain valley, well, that is where your life remains. But if your consciousness stretches out to the universe, your life follows.
Which leaves us with this final, incredibly powerful question drawn directly from the text's philosophy. Where is your consciousness reaching right now? Are you curled up in a metaphorical cave, or are you preparing to leap through the Dragon Gate?